Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network, folks. We got a lot of great conversations lined up for you. First, let's talk about the indictment of Peyton Drenden. Peyton has went to court, and there is a call by the attorneys to charge him with first-degree murder. We'll break down some of the numbers, but most importantly, I would love to hear your reactions to this indictment. We will have that conversation. Also, let's talk about the fact that the House has decided to move forward on passing a domestic terror bill. The question is, will it go through the Senate? We'll discuss that with our culture correspondent, Ashley Banks. Also at the 4 o'clock hour, Hood Huggers International, how they're reviving Affrilachia. You say, well, what is that? Stick around. We'll tell you. But it's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And then later, we celebrate the birth of Malcolm X. We got all of that and a whole lot more on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's jump right in. Today, it was announced that there was an indictment that was made against the killer, Peyton Drenden, who was responsible for killing 10 Black people in Buffalo, New York, and injuring 3. The indictment came down where he will be charged with 1 count of first-degree murder, which can cover up to 2 murders. However, it looks like, based upon the assistant district attorney, Gary Hatbush, he said that the first-degree murder indictment would cover all 10 murders. That's what the district attorney has said, and that the grand jury is expected to add more charges to cover the other deaths when the investigation is fully complete. And so this will certainly act upon to make us wonder, like, what is expected. Now, in the state of New York, there is no death penalty, but if all of these charges go through, Peyton Drenden will be spending the rest of his years behind bars. Today, I wanted to do something very different to get your reaction to this whole idea of this indictment. And to hear what you have to say. Make sure y'all post your comments in our chat on both YouTube and our Facebook channels, because I would love to get your insight about how should we respond to this? How should we respond to this? Like, what does this feel like that we might be going in a place of justice? And when I looked at and read about what was happening in court today, they did not allow any media. I mean, they had a couple of media outlets, but there weren't any, what we would normally see with the sentencing, with the indictments and all of those things. That didn't happen. This was all happening behind closed doors. But people are still trying to recover, folks, from what has happened just this past Saturday. And there are still some discussions around how this first set of charges will impact the fact that this was and is a hate crime. So that still has yet to be determined about that. But I would love to get your response, your reaction to this latest indictment coming from the assistant district attorney of New York around Peyton Drenden, 18 years old. He's looking at life in prison. And there are some people that are saying that this may not be justice. And this is something that I think that we all need to just really think up through and deal with. Look, post your comments in our chat. and I just want to get some basic reactions to this. Are you feeling hopeful? Do you feel like justice is going to be served in this case? That's what I want you to answer, and let me know what your thoughts are around this. Are you feeling hopeful? Do you feel like that the way this case is going to be handled from the state side of New York and federally from the federal side of things? Do you feel like justice will be served? Now, I know, let me just say this, folks. It's hard for us to imagine what justice will look like, considering the fact that there were so many people that have lost their lives in this horrific attack. So many. And so, even if Peyton was in a state that did the death penalty, even if Peyton said that he was remorseful, all of that, the fact is that 13 families actually have been disrupted. And not just those 13 families, a whole community right there in East Buffalo, a whole country. This is one of the worst mass shootings in recent history in this country, especially racially motivated mass shootings. I want to go to some of your comments as you're posting your thoughts. And folks, just like I said, just post your comments, put them in the YouTube chat, put them in our Facebook chat on all of our platforms, and we will give you an opportunity to be heard and have your comment read. Keena, let's go and let's put a couple of these comments up. I see that Larry had checked in. Larry said something I think is very important. He said the dude who drove through Wisconsin Christmas parade had 70 plus charges pending, but New York only charged one. Yeah, Larry. That was the situation of a black man who ran through the I think it was Waukesha, Wisconsin. Hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. And you're right. A lot of charges were thrown at that guy. A lot. And now we're looking at one. So, Larry, it sounds like you already feel like this is not going to be handled properly. But more charges are coming, folks. You got to remember, like, this is just the beginning. Peyton Gendron is due back in court on June the 9th. So this is just the very, very beginning. Brother King Lee checked in. Brother King Lee, he said, hello, Farajii. I am glad he was indicted. However, I'm not satisfied until the terrorist is convicted and sentenced. Amen to that. King, amen to that. I think that's all it is. And we're at this point, we just got to keep our eyes open, Brother King Lee. We really do have to keep our eyes open. And for the families, I know they're watching every step. We have to watch every step. We have to make sure that we stay vigilant on that. But I'm with you all the way, brother. It has to make sure it goes through the proper steps where he's convicted and sentenced. Let's go to James. James checked in and said, James Taylor, he said, I think we should be out here protesting just like with George Floyd. We can scream love over hate all we want, but love don't stop bullets. Woo. What would be the protest? And I'm just wondering, not to say that I'm not with you. I'm wondering, what would we protest? If we're protesting, and I think this might be something that we need to really consider, but if we're protesting white supremacy in the fact of how in a lot of states across this country, they just don't crack down on white supremacists in their respective states. Or we can protest the fact that access to guns. We can protest the fact that in cases like this one, Kyle Rittenhouse, when you have younger assailants, that maybe families that their families will be held responsible in some way, shape, or form, which I think is doable. I mean, which is only right. If a mother or father is introducing their sons to guns, to hate, all of those things, creating this monster of a son, then they should be held responsible. Don't you agree? So there are a number of things that we can protest. It's not just about, and we have to see how many years with the conviction, whether he gets convicted and sentenced. But there's a number of things that I think that we can protest. So I like that point. Josh G checked in and said, look, I'm against the death penalty in all cases. Life in prison is what this person deserves. It's still not justice. No punishment can ever make this right. Josh, you took the words out of my mouth, man. You took the words out of my mouth. I feel the same way, actually. I actually feel like there won't be anything. Like, even if you put him on death row, even if he, there was just so, like, the crime is so big. You know what I mean, folks? The crime is so big. It's so heavy. It's like Peyton doesn't even have a face. He doesn't have a name. He's just nameless. He's faceless. He's just the force of evil and hatred, right? And how do you recover from that? How do you recover from this onslaught of evil, onslaught of hatred, this onslaught of bigotry? How do you can't just point it to one person. So I think we're in the same space there, Josh. Danita checked in. Danita Jackson. Danita, always good to talk to you. I think they throw all these charges out to calm people down, knowing they will lessen them later. I hope that isn't the case, Danita. I really hope that isn't the case. Because I feel like if that is the case, here's how we should respond. Here's how we should respond. Some of us, now look, let me just say this. This is a part of the strategy that we often discuss here on the show. There should be a strategic response to a case like this. One is that some of us are like legal eagles, right? We keep up on these things. And so for those of us who keep up on these things, use your platform. Use whatever public space that you have that you can get people's attention to keep us posted, because we're talking about this today, but let alone next week, if something else were to jump off, something else would have happened, then we're talking about something else. And then to your point, Danita, we start to see like a dying off of interest around this case. So for the legal eagles in our communities, then there's a responsibility to make sure that we don't forget. We can't forget the tragedy, right? We can't forget the impact of the tragedy. Let's go to Denis. I appreciate that. James went back and said, protesting these lawmakers, they act like we're overreacting. I like that. I like that, James. I like it. And look, here's the thing, folks. It's a powerful statement when you can get Black people, white people, Latino people, because hatred affects us all. We understand that. White supremacy impacts us all. We need to bring in people so that the powers that be, to your point, James, the lawmakers can really understand and see that this is a very, very fundamental problem. Like, they keep talking about what's the great threat to democracy. The great threat to democracy is not just not voting. Okay? The great threat to democracy is white supremacy. If you're serious, the great threat to democracy is hatred. The great threat to democracy is being complicit and quiet. Silence is one of the greatest threats to democracy. If we're complicit, if the lawmakers are, I would say, if the lawmakers are complicit, if the lawmakers are silent, and they don't use their platforms to bring about substantial change, then they become the threat to democracy. Let me see here, making sure I want to get all of our. Looks like we have. Is it Maka? I think it's Mocha or Maka. Let's see what she has to say. Oh, Mocha Mima. Nothing stops you till we get and keep the right people in power. If the GOP takes over in November, it's a wrap. Now, here, y'all know, if you don't know, if you're new to the show, and welcome to the show. But let me just tell y'all, I am not. I try to keep a balanced view of both Democrats and Republicans, right? They both have disappointed Black people. They both have disappointed Latinos. They both have disappointed the poor. They have disappointed us. Now, Republicans are a little bit further along than Democrats in that disappointment. So I get it. I'm at the point now, and Mocha, you can definitely respond to this. I'm at the point now, it's almost like it doesn't matter. We're at the point now, I think this country is ripe and fertile for citizens to say enough is enough. Now, you might say, oh, is that a revolution? It can be a revolution, yes, but not with arms. It can be a revolution. First, we need a revolution of culture, a revolutionary culture. We need a revolutionary attitude and thought process that's going to say enough is enough. Like, we as the citizens and as constituents can't just sit on our hands and wait for our political leaders to do what we know is right. We can't do it. We can't do it. Queens, New York 65. Check this out. I'm not a believer in the death penalty, but anything less is not justice. Boom. I think our previous comment talked about like letting a person just sit there. Now, I don't know the mindset of Peyton Gendron. I know that in that manifesto that he put out, that he said he wasn't crazy. So since he wasn't crazy, since he says he has all of his mental faculties, then he should sit there and stew in that. But I hear you, Queen. I hear you. Lily G checking in. Lily G said, already saying this devil is suffering from mental illness. The mental illness is being in fear of becoming a minority in society and killing others out of fear. The fear you will be treated worse. Yep. There's a real fear among some white people in this country that this country is changing. And guess what? The country is changing. The country is changing. And it's changing fast. But it's not just about the physical demographic changes. The country, and y'all might be surprised I'm saying this, but the country, I truly believe, is going through an emergence of new thought, an awakening. I think that's the thing. Like, we are in such a unique and special time. And I'm saying this because I want us to think a little bit bigger about the time that we're living in. We're in a very special time. You got to remember, the United States has been operating on the premise of white supremacy for over 400 years. The United States is still considered to be, in some respect, a young country, a young institution, but we're a powerful force. But the thing about it is, too, we have one of the most horrific histories and origins in the world. Starting with the transatlantic slave trade, starting with the annihilation of Native Americans. I mean, when you look at that history, the country was built on death of other people other than white people. That's what the country was built on. So when you talk about, this fear that people have, I mean, everybody talking about this replacement theory and all of that stuff. The fear is that white people won't be in power. There is an awakening happening in this country, which is why I am, even though all of this stuff is happening, folks, I am an optimist to say that, yes, I like the fact that we, as painful, as horrific as it is that we're going through these things, we need to go through these things. We need this because you can't become better unless you've experienced the worst. Y'all hear me? You can't become better unless you've experienced the worst. If we can see the worst of us, like, we put up a mirror and you can see the worst side of yourself, then you got to get to a point where you say to yourself, like, I hate that part of me. Then you can start the process of becoming better. Let's go. Danita said there will never be justice for the families or our consistent trauma, but it will never stop as long as people continue to get away with it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Danita. You're absolutely right. Here's the thing: as people that are living in this country, we can't allow it to get away. I can't. Look, I'm not looking at political leaderships or entertainers or ball players or anything like that. No, it's us. Those of us who know, those of us who have a conscience, a moral compass to work from, we are the ones that shouldn't allow other people to get away from this. We have to speak out to say, you know what, enough is enough. Lana's always she is a great watcher of Roland and this show, great supporter. She said the only way to overcome this is to take us off the brink of survival, which is via financial equivalency, therefore reparations. My thoughts. Yep, that's one way. Reparations is to, of course, repair the damage that was done to us over 400 years ago in this country. But look how much damage is still still happening now. You know what I mean, Lana? We still are in this space where we are brutalized and victimized and killed wholesale in this country. And guess what? Who's going to repair that damage? How do you fix that? We're still talking about the damage from the transatlantic slave trade for over 400 years ago. Now we still got, what about this new damage that is being imposed on us? All right, let me take a couple of more, then we'll kind of wrap it up. And I appreciate each and every one of you for your reactions to this. Let's go to B. Let's see, make sure I'm here. There we go. Zypher Amsu. Zypher, I think I'm saying your name correctly. Hopefully I am. Don't want to destroy it. Call your legislators. Don't let them forget. Don't you forget while they moved on to the next subject. Nothing to be said there. I'm all in agreement. Thank you so much. B Dizzle, my man B Dizzle. B Dizzle said he admitted to killing them. He has a thorough plan of how he was going to do it, or he was gonna, who he specifically was going to kill, had racial slurs on the weapons, etc. No Twinkie defense here. He's through. Yeah. Yeah. The N-word on the gun, the whole thing, B Dizzle. Through. This should be a slam dunk case for the government and for the state of New York. Should be a slam dunk case. Slam dunk. All right, let's go to Lana to have another comment. The threat to their democracy is the black man and the black family. That's why they kill us like we video game targets. You know, I can talk on that all day, all night. But yeah. Here's the greater threat too. It's not just black men and black families. And I'm not going to say, let's add to that. The greatest threat to democracy is an empowered citizen, or rather, no, the greatest threat to democracy is not an empowered citizen, it's an ignorant citizen that don't know their power. That's the threat. That's a threat. If we allow our government to continue to operate without us speaking up and saying enough is enough, then we become our own worst enemy. Nisa 1971 said the issue is American individualism, that they thinking that doesn't affect them personally, so they don't feel they need to stand up for what affects other people in the community. I think that is one of the big issues in our culture, Nisa. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, sis. That is a problem. Let me add to that. You said American individualism, which I love. I think we should also add American exceptionalism. And if you aren't familiar with that term, folks, take a look at it. But it's this idea that America, out of all of the global countries, all of the countries on this globe, that we are exceptional. And guess what? Y'all want to know a little secret? We're not. We're not. Look at our healthcare system. Look at our educational system. Hell, look at our justice system. We're not exceptional in the things that are important to the growth, to cultivation, to the sustainability of life of human beings. We're not exceptional in that area. We got to call a spade a spade. We got to admit when we're wrong. And we haven't been in that place yet. So I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you, Sister Nisa. Let me see if we can go to Dejuma Boutique? Dejuma, how many instances of white male terroristic acts has to happen before profiling these groups, asking for some friends? That's my question too. That's why I said President Biden can lock it down, folks. Talk to these governors. If these governors are weak to expose these groups, then that's the problem. That's the problem. They're allowing stuff to continue to happen. Let's go to Belinda. Belinda's always checking in. Belinda Skinner, we need hands knocking on doors. Come talk to your people. We shouldn't have to write and call. Not fair. Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't. But guess what? We got to do what we got to do. But you're right. We shouldn't have to do it, but we're going to have to do it. Sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do to get what you want. Let's go to Mike V. Mike, always checking in. It's always good to hear from you, Mike. Mike said, well-written document, knew how to plot on a map and target based on statistics, and competent enough to drive 200 miles and acquire body armor. What mental health issue would that be again? Facts. So let us, every time somebody says that he was incompetent, he wasn't in his right state of mind. BS. Bullshit. All right. Thank you so much, Mike. And let's go to Bradley Guthrie. Bradley said, here it is, as we close out this part of the conversation, folks. This is an American nightmare. It is. It's a nightmare for those who want to see change in this country, but it may not be a nightmare for those who want to hold on to old ideals, to racist ways, to biased institutions. It's a nightmare. If you don't see it as a nightmare, or I don't see it as a nightmare, if we just accept it, then it does become even greater of a nightmare. When we accept things, you know, I'm reading just very quickly, I'm reading a book called The Four Agreements. Very inspiring book if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, folks. But The Four Agreements, it talks about if somebody gives you an opinion of you and you agree to that opinion, then that opinion and your agreement becomes a part of your belief system. If we accept this as the way we are, that this is the only way that we can be, if we accept this, and first we have to admit that this is us, but if we accept this, then guess what? It becomes entrenched in our belief system. And guess what, folks? Guess what? It won't change. It just won't change. That means your children, my children, my children's children, my children's children are going to be burdened with the same dilemma. And that's not fair. That's not fair at all. Folks, I appreciate all of the wonderful comments. Great insight. Thank you so much for checking in. Let's continue to have the conversation. I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about how the House has said they has passed a domestic terror bill. Question is, will it last in the Senate? We check in with culture correspondent and journalist Ashley Banks to have the discussion. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the second 30 of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punching!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
All right, folks, we want to have a conversation as we continue to look at the aftermath of the mass shooting in Buffalo. Our political leadership in the House of Congress has decided to move forward on codifying something, putting something on paper to deal with this ongoing domestic terrorism that FBI Director Christopher Wray say is one of the biggest threats to the safety of America. He said that out of 2,000 in open and active investigations, domestic terrorism takes up a large chunk of those open cases. So we wanted to take a look at this, but more importantly, what will our political leadership be doing as we look at this situation, especially in light of what happened in Buffalo? So let me just share this with you, Keena. Let's go to this first quote about how there is a new bill that the House just passed, and a 222 to 203 vote, nearly party line vote, was an answer to the growing pressure Congress faces to address gun violence and white supremacist attacks, a crisis that escalated following two mass shootings over the weekend. Representative Adam Kinzinger, the Republican out of Illinois, a member of the Congressional Committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol, was the lone Republican to vote in favor of the measure. The only one. This new legislation was passed yesterday, and it would bolster federal resources, folks, to prevent domestic terrorism. Look at what was said from Representative Brad Schneider, the Democrat out of Illinois. He said, "We in Congress can't stop the likes of Fox News host Tucker Carlson from spewing hateful, dangerous replacement theory ideology across the airwaves. Congress hasn't been able to ban the sale of assault weapons. The Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act is what Congress can do this week to try to prevent future Buffalo shootings." Now, this Representative Schneider, he introduced another measure back in 2017 to get something along the same lines. It didn't go through. So the hope is that this new legislation will get through the Senate. I don't know, considering the makeup of the Senate right now. Here to talk to us a little bit more about this and the impact of a domestic terrorism bill on the larger conversations of mass shooting is journalist and culture correspondent Ashley Banks. Ashley, good to talk to you. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Farajii?
I'm all right. I'm trying to figure out, Ashley, if the Democrats weren't able to get something passed back in 2017, and I know that we're we're in a new place in 2022, 5 years later, right? And coming off the heels of what the tragedy in Buffalo, what is the likelihood that they're going to get something passed through the Senate now?
It's pretty slim. And like you were stating just a few moments ago, the reason why the Democrats are pushing this Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act is because similar laws that they wanted to pass through the Senate were not getting passed. And so they figured they were going to broaden their scope when it came to the legislation, because apparently the previous laws they wanted to pass had everything to do with preventing mass shootings. And so they figure, let's go with, terrorism prevention, and maybe this will make the Senate get on board to help with, these gun laws and these different things that kind of contribute, right, to these mass shootings like we saw over the weekend. But I believe that the chance of this passing in the Senate is very slim, because a lot of Senate members have come out opposing this, and they are saying they believe this bill will give the DOJ more power. They believe the DOJ will abuse its power, and they also believe that this bill doesn't do a good job of emphasizing perpetrators who could be left-leaning. And so I think it's a very asinine point that they're bringing up, saying that this bill focuses too much on white men who lean right. And that's the reason why they wouldn't vote. But history shows us that those are the people who are usually doing these mass shootings, the white men who are leaning further right, unfortunately. But so right now it appears that Republicans in the Senate probably will be voting on this bill.
Wow. Yeah. Even though, and this is my point of contention, Ashley, and I'm trying to keep my composure here when I say this. Even though we know the impact of any racially motivated attack, right? Like, it can go left. It undermines anybody's faith. Like, I don't care if you're white. You can't possibly in 2022 see a racially motivated attack and say, like, well, it doesn't affect me, so I'm good. That so much, like, that political leadership is still saying, hey, we're going to have this kind of like hands-off approach and see if where it goes and dies down, or we're going to have an approach. Well, the party leadership said we're going to keep our mouths closed. So therefore, the rest of us, just kind of rank and file, will just fall into place. I just don't understand the thinking.
Yeah, none of us do, Farajii. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. To me, this should not be a left or right issue. This should be a human issue. We've been dealing with mass shootings for a very long time now, and nothing has been done. Democrats have been pushing for gun laws to be changed, for there to be more laws on the books to prevent these types of shootings from happening. I mean, we can go all the way back to Sandy Hook, and you can name the shootings that have taken place since then and now. And it's just like we have these same conversations about this is what we need to do. This is what can happen to prevent these types of shootings. But when we have Republicans who are in the Senate who are saying stupid things like, this bill is not emphasizing a left-leaning perpetrator, it's just like, are we serious right now?
Yeah.
Are we really serious? Because this would cover that. It would cover anyone who is dealing with who are terrorists, who are domestic terrorists. And so it just goes to show you that those who are opposing this bill, those who are in the Senate, do not care about the average American. They don't care about the lives of those living in this country. As long as they're not impacted, they couldn't care less about the rest of us.
Ashley, I'm afraid to say that is a very, very dangerous place for any one of us to be, especially political leadership in this country right now. Like, if you genuinely don't care, or if you're just so wrapped up into the details instead of seeing the big picture that this country is imploding, right? Like we have never, I would say we have never really dealt with the race question in a very productive way, right? We haven't gotten to it. Like reparations, that conversation continues to build momentum. We're seeing that. But on the other side of it, it's like the racial hatred. And this is why I always say that President Biden needs to clamp down. Like, while you're still left in office, sir, you need to come up with a very, very drastic approach to dealing with, white supremacist groups, of dealing with racial issues in this country. It can't be speeches and flowery language and just, harsh, emotional rhetoric. And then at the end of the day, the policy is weak. Like your speeches are stronger than the policy. It just can't be that. Yeah, and I'm afraid.
But I don't think we should.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't think we should have faith in Biden, the Black community. He said things.
You said we shouldn't have faith in him.
No, we shouldn't. He said things that were totally inappropriate while he was, running for presidency. I mean, we can remember the conversation he had with Charlemagne the God, and he's just like, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black, essentially.
Right.
And it's just like, that's something he said out loud. Who knows what
right.
he said behind closed doors or what he's thinking in his head. And so it's
should we have faith in Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris?
A lot of people do not have faith in Kamala Harris for various reasons, whether it be her past career or what we're just seeing that's taking place with the Biden-Harris administration. And a lot of Black people are very disappointed in what's taking place. So I don't think we're going to get what you would like to see, what I would like to see as it comes to Biden really, putting his foot down and saying, hey, we have to stop this nonsense. But I don't think that's going to come out of Biden, to be honest.
Let's go to some comments here. Let's go to Janine. Janine checked in, and she posted her comments, folks. And you can keep your comments going as we're talking to Ashley Banks, journalist and culture correspondent. Let's bring up Janine's comment, Keenan. She said, "How is it the FBI has never taken down a major white supremacist terrorist group, but yet they keep saying they are the number one threat to the country? Make it make sense."
That's an amazing question. That is such a great question.
You might be a reporter.
No, she should.
I don't know.
She should be in those hearings, those meetings.
I'm telling you, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. The crazy part about it, and actually correct me if I'm wrong, and because this is what FBI Director Christopher Wray said: 2,000 open cases, active investigations are happening right now. You mean to tell me you don't see a thread? Like there isn't, a couple of white supremacist groups that are behind some of these cases? You know what I mean? There's no pattern. Like, you mean to tell me, like, there are 2,000 active investigations and 2,000 white supremacist groups? I don't know. Great question. I don't know. I think the FBI, and Ashley, I'm sure you remember this a few months ago, it was revealed that the FBI was looking at Black organizing groups like Black Lives Matter and other groups and trying to figure out what their intent was doing. Or, what were they planning against the government? And it's like, but those groups not even on the radar in terms of, they're not blowing up stuff, shooting people down. So I'm not sure how they're determining, okay, this is a threat, this is not a threat. We're going to go after this group, but we're going to let this group continue to operate, and we're going to just keep surveillance on. I don't know how they're making that decision.
It's clear that they're just implementing practices that they had in place with COINTELPRO, and when Malcolm X was alive and Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, they're going after Black organizations, like you're saying. I mean, we have blimps here in the city where they were surveilling Black Lives Matter in protests, and it's just like, really? Black Lives Matter, as dysfunctional as some of us may believe them to be now that, headlines are coming out. But they weren't hanging people. They weren't as, destructive as other organizations that we've seen as white supremacist organizations.
They didn't run up on the Capitol.
They definitely didn't run up on the Capitol.
They didn't run up on the Capitol like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and others.
Would have been a different story, but it just goes to show you who are the people who are making these decisions? Do they
Yeah.
look like us? Do they look like, you know, the brothers of the white supremacist? And that will be your answer as to why they aren't catching these white supremacists. We have resources. This country has the intelligence to be able to capture these people. And so we have the New York Attorney General, Ms. James. She's launched an investigation into the social media platforms to see why this wasn't caught, to see why Peyton was able to basically plan out this whole mass shooting, and none of it was red flagged or notified, you know. And so that's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. But the FBI probably needs to be investigated, right? The DOJ needs to be investigated. Other places need to be investigated to figure out why he wasn't caught. So
let me tell you, that's a rabbit hole. That's like an Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole. You go down that hole of trying to figure out how to disrupt those social media platforms like 4chan and others, then you're going down a rabbit hole. Thank you so much, Janine. Great question. Karina Denise said, pass or fail, this domestic terror bill should have been drafted at the very least after January the 6th, or when FBI director testified white domestic terror as an imminent danger in this country. You know why it wasn't drafted, Karina? Because the speed of government is so slow to respond. Now, look, let me tell you, let me talk about it. As we're talking about this domestic terror bill, Ashley, just clunking along in the Congress, the United States, and I know some people y'all might be like, this night is something different. I don't know, because it don't come off as different. The United States Congress just passed a bill to guarantee another $40 billion to Ukraine. Literally, today. Before I came on. 40 B's, folks. Billion. And here we trying to... Now, look, I know it's a totally different situation, but my point is, you can make a decision about Ukraine, which has been happening for over 30, 40 days. This just happened last week, just less than a week ago. When Ukraine kicked off, we were already shelling out money. We were already talking about sanctions and military aid and resources. And what about black people in East Buffalo? Our thoughts and prayers. That's all they get. Thoughts and prayers. Pray for Buffalo.
That's it. Nothing tangible. Nothing tangible.
Changes.
Yep.
Let's see here. Brother King Lee. Let's see what my guy King Lee said. Brother King Lee said, at some of family reunions, I'm often going toe to toe with some of my law enforcement relatives. Some of them truly love our people, but some of them are fake butt punks. Wow. I get it. Ashley, we've talked about this. I mean, we know that, and this is not like when we have these conversations about police brutality, like we know that there are some good people that are in these institutions. We know that.
For sure.
But I never forget something that Dr. King often talked about. And I'm not going to repeat them verbatim, but I'm just coming across the idea. The thing that he often talked about, he said, when good people are silent about bad things that are happening, then what happens? Like, yeah, you could be good, but the good is based upon you speaking up when you see an injustice. It can't be just because I'm good, like, yeah, I'm good. The police officer that was just that we talked about, he was an ex-cop when George Floyd was being killed, Ashley. He just got indicted yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Or sentenced yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He was standing there. Now, he might be a good guy. He might have been a really good cop. But in that moment, when George Floyd was suffering the most, and you saw Derek Chauvin standing on him for over 8 minutes, 9 minutes, your goodness go out the window. You can't say you good But then when you literally are faced with injustice and you don't say anything, then what? I mean, am I wrong on this, Ashley?
You're not. You're just as bad as the actor who's doing it. And like you're saying, in that case, the officer, he had an obligation to serve, right? His duty is to serve. And if you see that one of your fellow officers is crossing the line, forget that police brotherhood thing they got going on. You're supposed to interrupt that and do what you were hired to do, not just stand there, because now look at you. You're facing consequences because for something that you could have prevented.
You become complicit in the injustice.
You do.
And when it's all said and done, it's like somebody, robs a bank and you watching them rob the bank and you don't call the police, but the police lock you up and you be like, well, why you lock me up? I ain't do nothing. I'm a good guy. I didn't do anything. The police said, well, why didn't you call us? I don't know, but I'm a good guy. That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense
at all. You got to speak up.
Good people that are silent. That's why we're in this place. Like you can't say I'm good, but then when you see bad and evil happening around you, you don't say nothing. You're complicit.
Right.
All right, let me go to one more. Then we gotta let Ashley go because I know she wants to hang out with us all the time. Bradley checked in. Say it's wishful thinking how the machine is so systematic that third-party grassroots movement is sustainable. So it's two parties until Jesus comes. I mean, look, and Ashley, to get to this point as we close out this part of the conversation, to look at the fact that we are in a two-party system. You brought this point up, which I think is true. That now the American people, we have lost faith in both parties, and I think everybody can agree to that. Even though we're at this point, the idea of a third party is still scary to some people. Like we would rather fail with two parties than to possibly win with a third party. And I don't know how to reconcile. I don't know how to make sense to that mentality. To Bradley's point, what would you say to that?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So I remember, what was it, the last election or the one before? Okay, so with Trump and Clinton, I had friends who wanted to vote third party. Everyone was saying, they're both evil. Hillary, some people thought was the lesser of the two evils, and so some people didn't know whether they should vote or not. And so having the conversations around like third party, people were like, if you vote third party, you're just throwing your vote away because a third party candidate's not going to win. It's always going to be between the Republican and Democratic candidate. So if we keep that mindset, believing that a third party is not going to win, people are going to continue voting for these two institutions. And so, we could potentially have these two institutions for the rest of our lives, unfortunately. But it would be interesting to see another party enter the picture and maybe change America around. I'm not sure if that's something that we could see in our lifetime. Probably not, but
I don't know about you, Ashley, and I'm just saying at this point, I'm open to some new and innovative ideas.
I think we all are. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of why Trump got in office, because, the white supremacists saw themselves in him. And he was different from the institution. He was different. He spoke the language that the average American speaks. He wasn't using that political jargon. And so, but if we could find someone who thinks a lot differently than Trump, but agrees that there needs to be laws in the books that prevent things like mass shootings and see all Americans as equal, then that would be great if we could have, a new party or a new candidate enter the picture.
Absolutely. Ashley, I appreciate you. We will certainly, reach back out to you to get the latest about this domestic terrorism bill to see if it goes anywhere or if it's just going to be like what we saw a few years ago. It just dies in the House. We will have to see. Ashley Banks, who is a journalist, you can find her work on essence.com, and she is our culture correspondent here. Ashley, thank you so much for your time.
You were welcome. See you later, Farajii.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk away from what's happening in Buffalo and domestic terrorism. Let's shift gears. I want to talk about Hood Huggers International, which is a group of Black folks that are just changing the game in the mountains. We'll have that conversation. And also in this hour, we'll talk about celebrating the life and the legacy of Brother Malcolm X and so much more. So stay with us. Those conversations are coming up next right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. An amazing first hour, getting so many great responses and comments and reactions from all of you. So keep them coming as we continue to have these conversations. I wanted to switch gears because as we're discussing all of these things that are happening, you know, they can kind of weigh on your mind. Well, today I wanted to highlight and have a conversation about Hood Huggers International. Now, the Hood Huggers International is a group of Black folks that are changing the game about Black life and culture and social justice issues in the mountains. Let me just share with you what they're all about, folks. Keenan, if we could post that quote. Here's what they're about. Hood Huggers is a partner organization of Asheville Creative Arts. That's Asheville, North Carolina. That serves as a vehicle for community-engaged social enterprise work, environmental work, and art in the Asheville, North Carolina area. Asheville is a city in western North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, a province of the Upper Appalachian Mountain Range known for its vibrant art scene, historic architecture, and African-American contribution. Folks, it is Hood Huggers International that is moving to bring Black folks into mountain life. But they're doing it in such a way that they are continuing the great tradition that was started to revive what they call Affrilachia. Are y'all familiar with this? Have you ever, when I saw this, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like it was just one of those things like Black people in the mountains? Yes, Affrilachia, folks. And this was a terminology that was coined by a Kentucky-based writer and poet, Mr. Frank X. Walker, that focuses on the cultural contributions of Black artists. Now, here to talk to us a little bit more about this is Culture crew member Rashad Staton, who is a nonprofit leader, an educator, and advocate / activist. Rashad, thank you so much, brother. Always a pleasure to talk to you. How are you today?
Always. I'm blessed and favored, brother. Thank you for asking. Hope the same is for you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Rashad, Affrilachia, excuse me. Affrilachia. The idea that Black people are expanding, we're working in these spaces like the mountains of Appalachia, right? But have you ever heard of Hood Huggers International?
Never, brother, never. And I just love the framing of the term Affrilachia, how they merged African with the Appalachian. Man, I love Black people. Our innovation, our culture is always gonna stitch us in the places that we exist in. Like I didn't even know out of my own pure ignorance that Black folks lived in the Appalachian Mountains, but I'm not surprised either in the fact that they have created a community, have created an international network and organization to support themselves and to keep their culture enriched and thriving, man. It just says a lot about who we are in our natural state of being and us taking pride in our heritage, our culture, and our representation.
So for me, Rashad, the reason that I wanted to just, talk a little bit about this is because my hope is that we can start to have conversations about how to expand our work, right? We have been conditioned to believe that once it comes to outside of the urban centers, that we are not needed anymore. That push, that social justice push, is not needed anymore. And one of the things that about Hood Huggers International is they're saying, no, we do need a space because we have environmental issues, we have social justice issues, especially in some of these smaller rural towns where Black people are congregating. Now, Black people are small. We're moving out of the big cities like New York, Chicago, Dallas. I mean, in some cases, like some of us are saying, you know what, I need a simpler life. I need to move to the mountains. Mm-hmm. But once you make that move to the mountains, then you got to deal with a whole new set of issues that stems from white supremacy and racism and environmental challenges. So I wanted to at least bring this to the forefront of people's minds that, to see Black folks in this new space is something both very empowering and very promising.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I'm looking at the comment that we got from one of the viewers here that talks about we always existed in the mountains, and the fact that those are tapping into our ancestry and our even Indian ancestry, and how we were always interconnected, and how I speak of I'm deaf into history, and I spoke of Nat Turner after the rebellion seeking refuge in the Indian territories and not knowing how to differentiate us from those Aboriginal and Indian persons, right? And it just speaks to us always existing. And like you said, us knowing our land, us knowing our people, and us knowing our community, that we are not singular in facts that we only exist within these urban populace, but we exist in other rural communities as well. And what we see in these rural communities is a stronghold on community togetherness, in a space where it's not just dealing with the social issues that show up in our disheartenment of how we interact with humanity, but how we interact with nature, right? And
Absolutely.
These folks understanding environmental consciousness and understanding how to sustain themselves using the nature around them just shows us, if we tap into our original state of being, that we can always thrive and we can always use our nature to make sure that we are sustainable and that we can live a fruitful livelihood. So I think a lot of what we might be seeing from Hood Huggers can easily translate back into urban communities, as some of their programming around education, arts, around history, and around expression. We see this in very smaller subsidies in our urban populations, but how do we take this unique approach of this smaller community that have found a way to create international footprints? I think that's something that can allow us to scale out with the minimalist distractions that they may get versus those that are already residing in urban populations. Because like you just said, we are watching another migration of Black and brown folks across this country, going back to rural areas, going back and moving outside of just the common grids and things that we have often been perceived to think that's only where we reside at, right? We watch this differentiation of these de jure segregation policies that move us from the cities out into the nearby counties, but we're also now populating these rural areas, and we're going back down south rather than these northern upper northern southern states like Maryland is, but we're going further down south to get that. And we're seeing this even in the rural communities that are surrounding, you want to say Houston, Texas, or surrounding Charlotte, North Carolina, and the surrounding these areas outside of the Atlanta that we all seek pride in. But we see these others existing in these communities too. And I'm just willing and curious of what we can learn from them that we can sustain ourselves in these urban populations.
Absolutely. I want to bring some comments in, folks. Post your comments. Let's get to them. Shalinda said Black folks were already in the mountains. So let's post Shalinda's comment real quick and get her thoughts on this. And folks, y'all keep it coming. Black folks were already in the mountains. Truth be told, the Indians that hid in the mountains were my Black ancestors. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Lana checked in and said, look, I'm from a small town. I think this is Arkansas. Am I not in AR? That's Arkansas, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Is that Arkansas? I believe that is. Y'all gotta forgive me. I know, letters and stuff or initials for the states. I'm gonna say Arkansas because she said the Midwest. I've been in the Midwest since college. I just bought 6 acres and trying to buy 7 more. I want to go home. The air smells different. Trust me. Lana said, yep, that is Arkansas. All right, Lana, thank you so much. No, you know what? Lana, let me tell you something. You know it and I know it. You understand the power and the value of land. So if you got 6 acres, that you got a nice piece of land there, right there. And then you're trying to buy 7 more? Come on, sis. You're going to have to grow some food.
All power to you.
She's going to have to grow some food for us. Lana, you're going to have to grow some food. She want to go home. The air smells different. Trust me. And you know what, Rashad, it's interesting because like our generation, well, you're younger than me, but I think we're still like, I'm on the tail end of the generation. But the fact is like our generation, those your age, a little bit older and leading up to my age, we don't know about this part of our culture, about being a part of the land, about living in the mountains, about, that. I mean, I think there's a segment of young people of the next generation who are into that. But we've been so urbanized, and I don't even know if that's a word. Is that a word?
I don't know, but you can get coined for
everything. The idea of us going out, living off the land, tilling the land, cultivating it, going on a farm. I mean, generally those things happen when you get into your 40s. Like I'm in that space now. Like, oh, that'd be dope to kind of have a farm. You know what I mean? That'd be
simplify
dope
life a little bit.
That I can actually eat. That would be dope. Like I would want my children to eat what's coming from the ground. You know what I mean? They don't have to worry about the processes of stuff. Like how do we get our people, especially the next generation? How do we get them to be excited about just getting back to this natural place?
Yeah, I think one is it's a natural like rise of consciousness and awareness that we're starting to see, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we understood that we eventually moved from this space where slavery enforced us and enslaved us to the point that we saw agriculture and sustaining and cultivating land as oppressed labor. But even as we became emancipated, we then found out clearly in our history, and if we read deeper beside what's given to us in the educational system, that we gain a sense of our own worth and value and our own dependency and autonomy. That when now we're raising consciousness and vibrations in our community, we're starting to be very self-aware that we should go back to what has allowed us to, to thrive independently on our own and not be dependent on societal norms or the urbanization that provided us once at a time further opportunities and employabilities. But the reality is these mills and these factories that was once thriving in our country has now been displaced and has all been sent out into other countries. And America is not one of those places that have a strong hold on agricultural development. So it's that space of now, if our country doesn't have the business framework, we as homes and houses and communities must attain to that opportunity so that we can ourselves continue to live, continue to thrive, and we can actually remedy a lot of the social indicators and determinants that's holding us back from progressing. Right. If we can continue to do urban farming and community farming, like you said, it removes the toxins, the pesticides, and all of the ills that is made when it's being produced by these larger corporations that want to see monetary gain rather than healthful gains in us as our humanity and our biological makeup. So I agree with the sister. I'm pleased to see that she is purchasing land and looking forward to purchasing more. Right. I think that's powerful, and it says a lot about our sovereignty as a people. And if we continue with that direction, I think we'll have a stronghold on even how we move and more in the strength as far as political affiliations and things of that sort, and even education, right? The Brothers of the Nation speaks very highly on farming and cultivating out lands and going into it. And you start to see these younger brothers in the nation under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that speaks to his teachings and his messaging that tells them to go back and go and purchase land. That is one way of us gaining our independence and our sovereignty and everything else. So I love the idea of this, and I love that it's given us another avenue to freedom and liberation.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt, bro. Let's go back to the chat. Let me see what Janae had to say. Janae always trying to be funny, Rashad. Always trying to crack jokes. Look at Janae. Let's bring up Janae's comment, please, Keenan. As we're talking about Hood Huggers International. Folks, if you haven't heard of the group, y'all should check them out. They're talking about reviving Affrilachia. Janae said, I am not ready to live off the grid. Plus, it's cold.
I take some moments off the grid.
I understand, though, sis. I totally understand. I think that's why you have an organization and like Hood Huggers and other organizations out there to show us that it can be done. That it can be done. And I think that it helps at least to open up our minds. Not even if you don't jump fully into the lifestyle, but at least you know that maybe I can try this, every couple of weekends during the year or something. You're going up to the mountains with some professionals that can help you to understand the beauty. I mean, just to expand, because here's the place I'm at as well, Rashad. Like, when we talk about self-care, sometimes people say, oh, self-care is going out and buying, going to the store or going to and those things are nice. But self-care, when I think of self-care, I'm thinking about you becoming one with nature. I'm thinking about you, putting the phone down, walking away from the social media, and just getting into a place where you can breathe, you can take in new oxygen. You can stand on the top of a mountain or looking over the ridge when you can see the sunset. You can, just letting your body, to Lana's point, stuff starts to smell different when you're at the top of a mountain. You can breathe and you can let the energy of the trees, the energy from the sun, the energy from nature to feed you. So, Janae, I hope you don't have to go in there when it's cold, sis. You can just go out there when it's like a nice warm day. I don't know what city you in, but I would highly encourage, all your major cities, there are places, especially like on the East Coast. And then, of course, on the West Coast, you got mountains all over the place. But take the time to do that level of self-care, not just getting like a massage or those things are nice, trust and believe, a mani and a pedi, I got you. But that self-care, being one with nature, I think would change your life. Ryan, now this is Ryan. I want to, let's take a look at Ryan's comment. I think this is absolutely excellent. Ryan said, the further you get away from cities, the more freedom you have. I want us to think about this, Rashad. The further that we get away from cities, the more freedom that we have.
Yeah,
I
would
remember
say like
having conversations doing the work that we do, brother, talking and empowering young people, right? And it always blows my mind when I come across Black youth that have never ventured outside of their neighborhood or they never ventured outside of their city to go like camping. You know, I would work with programs that would take young people out camping. And I'm talking about 13, 14, 15-year-olds saying, I've never been camping.
Yep. I had that lived experience until I was, had that opportunity awarded to me, and it changes your life. Even with the work that we do, and we know this is passion and service-oriented work, my best way and my preference to reconnect and recharge is to get off the grid. A lot of times finding these places to go hiking, to go walking, to go trailing, to go camping, and just to go into these secluded places where you connect, and you become earthly people, in which we naturally are. We connect back to nature. We silence the distractions and the noises. We minimalize other people's projections and the falsehood of what society should define as success. But it allows you to listen to your own thoughts a little bit more, to listen to nature, to watch God show up in miraculous ways, and you're more likely to hear your higher self and your conscious self when you are have intentionally removed yourself from these things that we see as normal everyday things, which is not oftentimes for our betterment. So I always encourage others, and I've even started to take my son on these excursions, and even encourage my parents and especially like my dad to just get off the grid, go in there. And as I've started to climb, this definitive space of accessibility and leadership and power and influence, I've learned that a lot of those that we would identify as thought leaders, visible public figures, they actually use their gains to get away. And a lot of times they do that. But the reality is, when they're doing that, they're not going back to the communities that they're serving, often come from, to say, hey, this is my way of recharging. This is my way of rejuvenating. And we need to make that a common way of self-care. Like you said, a lot of times it doesn't have to be these things that we're often used to. Sometimes, and at the times when we go and go off grid, it is least costly. It doesn't cost much besides travel. And if you have the accessibility to travel, then you should have the accessibility to disconnect. So when you do connect back, you are back to your full and whole self.
Let me tell you something.
I love this idea.
Brother, let me tell you something. That's the stuff that we're talking about. Karen, let's bring up Karen's comment, Keenan, because I think she's on point as well. Karen M checked in and said, that's right, Farajii. That is self-care, being in nature. And if we can begin to be self-sustaining, that would truly be self-care. Amen, Karen. Amen. Self-care, you're in touch with nature, and then self-sustaining. That's what I'm talking about. Look, folks, look. And I think sometimes, Rashad, I know I'm getting older because certain stuff is starting to excite me now that it didn't excite me when I was younger, right? You know what I mean? Like this whole idea of being one with nature, this whole idea of, and I'm getting in this space, folks, and I'm sure some of you are in the same space. Like, we've carried so much pain. We've carried so much pain from our personal experiences. We're working to try to shed the expectations, the unhealthy view that others have placed on us and that we have accepted. We've carried so much pain of being Black in America because that leaves a physical and psychological, that has a physical and psychological toll. Like what we saw in Buffalo, that will have a physical and psychological toll on not just East Buffalo, but for all Black people, because we're connected. Like, as much as we might think that we're not, our DNA is connected. Like that's how we able to feel for those brothers and sisters that lost their lives in that tragedy, because it's something that's literally in us. Our DNA is a part of our makeup, right? So we're connected. So we carry so much pain and so much hurt and so much tragedy and so much trauma that now, to become one with nature, to become one with yourself, to not live in a schizophrenic mindset. All of these things become more, to me, like they become more attractive to me. I'm realizing, Rashad, and you might be at this place too, bro. I'm realizing like the things that America, that this country and our culture has said is important, is not important. Money is not important. We know that it can create change, it can do some things for, but in the big scheme of things, folks, you know that if you had a choice between money and peace of mind, what you going to choose? I'm choosing that peace of mind.
Same here. Same here.
You know what I mean? Like we carry so much in our years. That's why young people looking old people looking older, depending on your lifestyle, depending on what you allow coming into your mindset, your head. You know, what kind of information you feeding on, what are you consuming during the day? I mean, this is we're talking about a holistic, healthy living. But I'm at a place where I'm saying, look, man, I'm trying to shed all that trauma, all that pain, all that hurt. I'm trying to keep that in the past. As I get into my years, I don't want to pass that mess on to my children. I just don't want to do it, bro. Look, my wife and I, we take our children out to nature. Go ahead, run around, play in the grass. You know what I mean? Like, just enjoy, breathe. Because as much as we like to believe that we're living, when you're in these cities, when you're going through the grind each and every day, the simple things of just taking a breath, taking the air in and letting it out, it can make all the difference in the world.
Yes, sir.
So I love that point, Karen, about being self-sustaining and that's the self-sustainment, though, starts with the temple, the body. It starts with our minds. It starts with our hearts. Because at this point, man, I'm ready to just let certain things go. I'm not holding on to this. I'm not holding on to no grudges. You know what I'm saying? Too old for that shit, bro. Yeah. I'm just too old for it. You know what I mean? Holding on to some old pain. You know, you probably got, and I'm just saying, and folks, y'all probably got family members that want to talk about stuff that happened 25 years ago. They still wrapped up in that pain. You got stuff that you want to hold on to, past trauma. Man, look, let's do ourselves a favor and learn how to process that, work through that, get back to ourselves. Because this is, when I heard about hood huggers, I was like, man, that's an outward journey of an inward quest.
I like how you put that.
You living in the mountains, you going up in the mountains, but you really are going up into the upper echelon of your thinking to find some level of clarity. So that way you can be able to think clear, to make better decisions. I'm not trying to hold on to that, man. I'm not trying to hold on to this mess. Like this country is in such a state of mind that we have to all do our best to keep our sanity intact. Because as everything else is falling down around us, and it may seem like that, the walls are closing in, the ceiling is falling, we got to make the conscious and intentional choice, Rashad, that is not going to be our reality. That can't be our reality. We've gone through too much. We made of the best stuff on earth. Like, you remember Snapple when they always said made of the best stuff on earth? They're talking about black people. And a couple of tea, some tea. But we got all of this inside of us that if we just cleared the garbage, we just take a few breaths in. If we just really worked on that self-care, we will transcend the pain. We will transcend all of the madness that's around us. I'm sorry, brother. I just had to share that. What's your take, man?
No, what you gained from it was what I gained from it. I was just watching this higher level conversations just last night, and they was talking about exactly this of like what hood huggers is personifying for me, and how it resonates with me is exactly what you was alluding to. This idea of holistic health. right? As it being a universal alignment to in one inner self and in one alignment to nature. And the fact that they have tapped onto this and have sustained this will show that this community itself will continue to thrive, will continue to exist, and will continue to navigate whatever comes their way, because they are so in tune with self, they're so in tune with nature, and they're so in tune with the universal community around them that I applaud them for this, and I applaud you for speaking this up, because those that are a viewership and those of an audience that reside within an urban populous city or town, let's say, we should now look forward to other ways to recharge, recenter, and like you said, reduce the noise of distraction and suppression and get to a sense of what really matters. And if we take our self-care as our first priority, our community grows healthier. And I think Hood Huggers is doing exactly that, and they should be applauded, and we should learn from each other.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause, but let me just share this with you. This group, Hood Huggers, Rebuilding Affrilachia, you can go to a website, and if you're in Asheville, North Carolina, look at that. They got the colors up there, folks. I want to just show y'all. If you're in Asheville, North Carolina, they will actually give you what they call a hood tour. Take you right up in the mountains, Rashad. Look at that, man. I got to get them on the show.
I was about to say that. Whoever thought to correlate the name Hood to be in the wilderness and to be in nature, and it just shows us reclaiming narratives and us living in our everyday story.
Yeah,
this is beautiful.
So if y'all live in Asheville, North Carolina, definitely check them out. But Hood Huggers International, beautiful, beautiful group of Black folks doing some great things. All right, Rashad, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about celebrating the life and the legacy in commemoration of Brother Malcolm X. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches! Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A Black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Wow. Roland was amazing on that.
Hey, Black, I love y'all. I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
All right, folks. Today it is May the 19th, which is the birthday of one of our great leaders, Malcolm X. Now, many of you probably know the story of how Malcolm grew up in humble beginnings, how his father was killed by the KKK, how he grew up living on the street from a young man, and then he was saved by the great teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad while he was in prison. And from that, it sparked and created brought to birth a man that the world has yet to see, has never seen before. A great man, a man who was challenging scholars from across the globe about the history, about the power of Black people. And so today we just wanted to take time to just show our love for the life and the legacy of Brother Malcolm X. Now, we know that Malcolm X, his story is not without controversy, but we do also know that what he brought to the conversation, to the table, how he exemplified Black leadership in a country that don't love us, is something that's worth celebrating. I want to bring in Culture Crew member Rashad back into this conversation because I want to ask the question, Rashad, how has the life and work of Malcolm X empowered you? This is my chat question. So for all of those who are in the chat, share your thoughts about what you think about the life and the legacy and the work of Brother Malcolm X. Let me just say this. I heard the Minister Farrakhan, say that Malcolm X was one of the most disciplined men that he ever seen in his life.
Uh-huh.
And Malcolm was so serious about committing himself to the teachings, but more, he was so serious about committing himself to a cause that was bigger than himself. That's one of the things that I get from him, from his story, his work, his life. The fact that he was committed and disciplined for years. You know, some of us, Rashad, we get disciplined for 30 days. You know what I mean?
That's the truth.
Then we off the wagon. He was disciplined for years. He was doing that. I mean, from a man who had gone from the street life, running numbers and the whole nine, sleeping around, doing drugs, robbing people, to being one of the most prolific leaders of the 20th century. And again, we can't remove the fact that he made that change. He didn't make that change on his own. He was introduced to some knowledge and wisdom from the great teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So we can't, you can't write Elijah Muhammad out of history.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to reforming and restoring Black men and women. But when Malcolm did, and taking those teachings into the streets, the way he did. Now, of course, I'm not old enough to know how that was done. But back then, when I seen the pictures and I've talked to my mentor, Brother Student Minister Carlos Muhammad, who is a historian and archivist for the Nation of Islam, Brother Malcolm really was in the street. You know how we say we in the street? Now, that man really was in the street. Like, he was teaching, and that was the culture back then in New York. And I know if y'all if anybody's from New York and y'all, you were around at the time, that seemed to be the culture. Hit that corner.
Stoop talks.
And just start teaching. Now, that may not be the way we communicate today, right? But there was something very raw and organic and beautiful in that presentation that, you in Harlem in the 50s and the 60s, and, Harlem is bustling with all these people, Black folks everywhere. Then a man comes and he has I remember as an actor, I had a chance to play Malcolm X in 2 productions. I know, folks, you're probably thinking to yourself, what? Yeah, I did. But one of the things that I did was to study his cadence, his speaking style. And when I studied his cadence, it was like a da-da-da-da-da-da. like a machine gun, you know what I mean? Like, da, 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 da. And then, you know, he would have these mannerisms as he was speaking. But then when he said something, it was like his train of thought, his analysis of things were so on point. It made you question, but at the same time, it made you think higher. Like all the quotes that we use to describe Malcolm, you know, the ballad or the bullet, or you talking about if a man puts a knife in your back, all of those things. So I appreciate Brother Malcolm for bringing that level of discipline, that level of commitment, that love. And I truly believe that he loved Black people. And I truly believe that he loved humanity. And I truly believe that as much as he thought that he was using the media used him. The FBI used him, which led to, I believe, to be part of his downfall. But what about for you, though, Rashad? What about the life and legacy of Malcolm really empowered you?
Brother Malcolm, one of my favorite ancestors, to be completely honest with you, one that I have studied for so long, whose message, vibration, and energy still resonates within my spirit and soul. Being a community activist, educator, and a change agent, he's one of those pillars and staples in history that I often try to emulate and try to take from his blueprint to continue his legacy and moving the marathon forward. I love the fact and one of the things that really resonated with me that allowed me to gain a sense of enlightenment is when I was doing the studying of Brother Malcolm X, was when I engaged another young leader down in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I had his book and I had a few other books while I was a Freedom School educator on the Alex Haley farm. This brother came up to me and said, brother, you personify many of our ancestors' legacies of who they are by being autodidactic. And I never heard this term before. And he said, do you know what that means? And he made me research it. And autodidactism means to self-educate outside of the normal educational systems, right? And that's exactly who Brother Malcolm X was. The fact that he was autodidactic, that you could not take from his knowledge and his intellect, but also his wisdom, because he self-educated himself along with the practices from the nation that has taught him many of his ways to live a fruitful and obedient life. And that attests to who his character is. So even when you spoke of how he shared his messaging and giving us food for thought, but not oversaturating us with information that we go into this cognitive dissonance, but a fact that when he gave us analogies, when he gave us connections to the world, and his connection to higher thinking and how we should lift ourselves up, it was in places because of his lived experience. He was able to correlate to the person who was a former convict, or who was addicted to a substance, or who was going through their own internal self-hatred, because he went through it himself. So he was able to naturally connect with the same people he was servicing because he had that same lived experience. But what he's done under the teachings of the Nation of Islam, he was able to actually renew himself, and he allowed others to see their potential of growth by him exonifying, exuding in his own growth and journey. So what I've gained and what I love now is these different movies and shows that show the different aspects and lenses of who Malcolm X was, even from the One Night in Miami that speaks of the close relationship with him, Jim Brown, the relationship with Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, and others. It showed that he was this stronghold amongst great men during this time that kept them all in tune in a space of obedience, discernment, and decisiveness to what is the best for the larger community. And another one, as I did the research, and now they're uncovering all of these old government findings of how he was often, surveillance. And even in these findings, they speak to the truth of who Malcolm X was and say that, man, he had a cleaner slate and a stronger character than what people often thought of him in comparison to Martin Luther King. They couldn't find no particular dirt on this man because he was so obedient to Allah that he did everything in the most fruitful and obedient manner. And that's what I loved about him. Like, despite his past, he had a fruitful life and was willing to connect with people under the sovereignty of him having a closer relationship to God, and he's seeing everyone. And as we get closer now into 2022, where we're dispelling these gaps of history and the narrative that they often said to us, we're starting to see publications that say, hey, Brother Malcolm was not speaking of hatred. He was speaking of self-love and prioritization of his community so that he can build, along with his messengers, a sense of pride and worthiness. And he showed that we as a community now should look at ourselves and look at ourselves to be the ones that pull us up, that we have that space and that power to pull ourselves out of whatever suppression that the man, the systems have perpetuated us to live in. And I gained that sense from him. And even this last movie of The Godfather, Harlem, his connection to even these street leaders, right, of the underground, he was able to teach them and transfer their skill set of influence and power and criminality to actually organize and use their monetary gains to shift the political system. I love the idea that we're seeing different narratives of Malcolm X, and I think it's past due that he get the same honor, recognition, and esteem that for what he gave his life to.
Well, you know, his story is so it speaks to where so many young black men and black women find themselves today, right? That a man or woman that can go through all of the stuff of the trials and tribulations that he has gone through to be redeemed, to be cleaned up, quote unquote, and to shake up the world. I mean, that's a better than a rags to riches story. That's like a rags to wisdom story. You know what I mean? That a man like him can just that exists. And so, you know, the thing about Malcolm is he believed in what he was saying. He believed it. He believed in this possibility that black folks can be liberated from the racist systems that we're a part of. He believed that. I truly believe. And folks, if he were alive today, he would be 96, if I'm not mistaken. 96 years old. Man, Malcolm would be like one of the Tulsa Three. You're almost in that age range, you know, or nearly 100, over 100. But, you know, it's a beautiful story. Let me just share what people are saying, Keenan, if we can get some of these comments up, because you know, so many folks are just checking in and sharing their thoughts. I'm just asking the question, you know, how has Malcolm X's life and his legacy impacted you? Share your thoughts with us as we talk about it. And I was able to pull up something. Newsone.com posted a piece, Malcolm X's most iconic speeches. And I think we all have, you know, some of our favorite sayings, but to hear the speeches, what I always like to do, and I've done this with Dr. King, and somebody, maybe y'all can help me with this. I like to read the speeches because hearing them is one thing, reading them to see the train of thought is another thing. So if there is a great book of speeches that from Malcolm X speeches, somebody just throw it in there. Let us know, like, what would you recommend as being a great book of speeches that I can read? Because I got this book from Dr. King. I got it around here somewhere, and I love it. I love reading it. It gives me better understanding. But if there's a great book of speeches, I would love to know that. All right, Keenan,
you know, Farajii, it actually, you know, every year on Black History Month, Title actually goes and uploads some of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King's essential speeches. Like
Title, like the music platform?
Yeah, Title music platform.
I didn't know that.
Rather than Apple, they download his music. And I even have vinyl records of Malcolm X's speeches, and I can literally go all night and watching his YouTube videos and things of that sort.
I like
so I'm the same way, brother.
I need to read them.
Like, I love to hear his voice and that passion that resonates, that fire in him. Like you said, that cadence that he speaks to. Like, we live in a moment where we've seen a great orator in Barack Obama, but to hear those voice Oh man,
I mean, no shade on the president. No shade on the president.
But that's two different fire energies right there.
Y'all, I mean, y'all, this is, you ain't never hear a person speak unlike a minister from the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm gonna say. When you hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when you hear Malcolm X, when you hear, Sister Ava Muhammad and others, when you hear those speeches, when you hear the passion, you can hear you don't hear weakness.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear somebody that's uncertain about the knowledge. It's like you hearing that's from God.
Yeah.
That's and then let me tell you, when you hear the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, even in his 3rd grade education, breaking down some of the most complex ideas about everything from social issues to the universe. I mean, so there's a way, and I remember just growing up being taught how to speak a certain way to get the messages across. Malcolm mastered that. Of course, the minister masters that. Mm-hmm. How to get the message across, because guess what? The rhythm in which you say something, it resonates to Black people because we're a rhythmic people from the beginning.
Preach.
So if you say words in a certain rhythm, in a certain cadence, if you emphasize this, you diminish that a little bit, and I mean you going through it. Boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, it's like it wakes up the thinking of an individual, right? And so Black people, when they heard Malcolm, of course, Black people, Rashad, you just like, what is he saying? Let me just can we throw some comments up there real quick, Keenan? Let's throw some comments up here. Let me get to these comments, and then we can close out tonight on today about Malcolm X. But look what Stop the Violence said. Stop the Violence checked in. Stop the Violence, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you. Stop the Violence said Malcolm told us to defend ourselves. Hey, now. He surely did. He told us how to defend ourselves, but when he said it, Rashad, he sounded like he could whoop your ass.
And then with the movie show, the movie,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
he didn't say nothing. He said,
bruh.
And it just moved.
Let me tell you, like, he was another brother that was very, I mean, he spoke, but he was feared when he spoke. Brother Khalid. If y'all don't know the history of Brother Khalid Muhammad.
Khalid Muhammad, yes, sir.
Dark skin. I mean,
two different spectrums of the hue as blackness when it comes to them. You had light red and the darkest chocolate.
Look, man, Muhammad don't make no weak people, man. I'm telling you, Muhammad makes there's a saying in the nation that says Muhammad makes men. Damn right. I've seen it. I've grown up around it. I strive to be it. Damn right. Because they speak with authority. Let me see. Let me hear from my man, brother King Lee, always checking in. King Lee said, my parents loved ancestor Malcolm X. My late father and my living mother always purchased the Muhammad Speaks, later known as The Final Call. I mean. Thank you, brother King Lee. Donita Jackson checked in. Malcolm X allowed us to see his beauty unfold, and he loved his people. Whew. Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about Malcolm and Martin that I think for you and I, Rashad, I'm gonna hold this piece. I'll hold that part. I'm gonna hold this thought because that's something that I think that we can always feed on. Let me go to McCole. McCole Spicer. Always good to hear from McCole. She said, I believe that Malcolm X challenged the Black community to think better about ourselves and not to internalize the dehumanizing narratives placed on us from slavery, the Jim Crow period. Amen.
Yes.
Whew. Think better about yourself and not to internalize. That's what I'm talking about, folks. That's what Malcolm brought. Because he'd been down at the bottom. He was there. He was sulking. He was in that space. but he was blessed to be pulled up out of it. He didn't pull it out of his own. There was an intervention that happened there. But you're absolutely right. Michelle checked in. Michelle said, Malcolm X, such an intelligent, inspirational leader, and incredibly brave to be so outspoken and not to be afraid to be authentic. He spoke the truth. Yep. See, when you've been down in the bottom, you know, some of us have such powerful stories. And so I'm always open to hearing some of the stories of people who were living one type of life, Rashad, and then they were able to change it. Those are the most powerful testimonies. Those are the testimonies that people need to hear of. And when you hear how knowledge and wisdom, not just talking about the Nation of Islam, I'm just saying across the board, that when you hear powerful stories of how human beings are redeemed, like the story of Malcolm X, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Very quickly before we wrap up, we got a couple of moments left, but I wanted to say this, and I appreciate y'all for your comments. But one of the things is Malcolm knew how to sacrifice. He gave his all. Martin gave his all. The family didn't, when Malcolm died and Martin died, they didn't leave millions of dollars. And this is a thing for us to kind of reflect on it, Rashad. The thing for us is, if you're serious about being a freedom fighter, if you're serious about the struggle of liberation of Black people and oppressed people and poor people in this country, then you got to constantly ask yourself the question, how much am I willing to sacrifice for a cause bigger than me? And I think about that all the time, brother. No, I mean, real talk. Every time I'm on this platform, every time we're in other spaces, I always think about that. I'm like, man, because that's what makes you great. When you say, I'm giving my all to a cause that's bigger than myself for the preservation, for the life of other people, at the expense of my family, the marriage to my wife, the time away from my husband, my children, all they gave it all. Something for us to think about. Rashad, we're gonna play a just quick clip that Keenan got for us. I want to give you 30 seconds to speak on. What are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I just want to say, man, even what he sacrificed, we can still see the beauty in his family. I think even when I met his youngest daughter, I saw the light in her, and she spoke so proudly of her dad and what he's given to this world, that she walks in his esteemed light, and that says a lot about him. Although saving the community is sacrificing his time with his from his beloved family and his children, the work that he did allowed his children to know a path that they should walk in and carry the rich history of their father. And that just always resonated with me as I saw her show up in her light and stand in her truth, and also just continue that legacy. It says a lot about where she got that from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to play this special video. Let's play it for a few moments, Keenan. Let's give the people a little something to think about as we celebrate the life and legacy and the great work of ancestor Brother Malcolm X.
Sure.
All right, we're gonna come back in. We got Rashad with me.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Keen, let us know. I know I think our audience wouldn't mind us just to play a little bit of the great Malcolm X before we close out today. You know what I mean? Something to inspire us. Keen, just let us know when you got that volume available, because I want to make sure that everybody tune in for that. But yeah,
what reminds me of this. Remember when we were doing the voter registrations, and we reenacted it. I asked you for assistance when we created that ballot or bullet voter registration campaign.
Oh yeah.
And we did the voter registration at the Shoe City and downtown locker rooms, and
right.
we like, no, if you can stand in line for some Jordans, you can stand in line to cast your ballot.
Come on, brother.
And it's like, come on now, we're gonna cast this ballot, or we're gonna continue to see our community die by bullets. And it was like, man, this idea that he created was timely. Like this campaign and this strategy, that it resonated even up until today's world, when we're still fighting for our rights to be civically engaged and participatory in our electoral cycles.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. And here's the thing. This is the thing about when we have these historic birthdays, like the birth of Dr. King and all of those great heroes and sheroes. Like, look, folks, don't let somebody take the life and legacy and commercialize it and destroy, you know what I'm saying, with their mouths, destroy what these men and women have done. Somebody brought it up, Toni Morrison and others. Like when we these are jewels. These are jewels. And I know that some of us, like I said, Malcolm X, his history, controversial, but I'm today and just looking at it in the big scheme of things, they added. Dr. King, you may not always agree with his politics, but guess what? In the big scheme of things, they added to the liberation of our people. We will never stop talking about Dr. King. Look how, and we will never stop talking about Malcolm X. Because guess what? This is my take on it very quickly, Rashad. My take is anything of good that you brought to the table is worthy to be celebrated. And that's how I think the creator looks at it. And because they sacrificed so much, they gave their lives to this cause of liberation. Their reward is that they will never be forgotten by history. And they should never be forgotten, but certainly by us, because they come from us.
Say that again, brother.
You see what I'm saying? So their reward, we will never stop talking about any of the great ones that came before us. We will never stop, because they gave themselves. And so that's the reward. All right, so we got it now. We got it, Keenan. All right, let's play this piece of our brother. Oh, he said, hold on. My man Keenan getting it ready. Getting it ready. But we can never. So, when we look at the ones that have passed on, like, I was just made me think about like John Lewis, some of those who have passed on from this day. Even, I think, who was it? I think King Lee may have been you. Somebody brought it up in the chat that Paul Mooney died today. Right?
Oh, wow.
Not today. I mean, a year ago. I think it was a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay.
That Paul Mooney died on his date, a year ago. And one of the things that I remember is that look what he did for comedy and bringing a certain level of consciousness and talking about it. Because he came out of that time of Malcolm and Martin, and you know what I mean? So anything of good that you do is going to be remembered. Unlike how we are conditioned to think where the worst is remembered. No, anything of good is going to be remembered.
It will be greater.
So and I'm not trying to be naive, but just saying that in terms of those who have come before us, we should celebrate the good that they brought to the struggle. All right, cool. All right, my man Keenan got it rocking and rolling. We're ready. So let us play now just some of the inspirational words and the thought-provoking language of the great brother Malcolm X. Check this out.
The Muslims who have accepted the religion of Islam and follow the religious guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have never bombed any churches, have never murdered any little girls, as was done in Birmingham, have never lynched anybody, have never at any time been guilty of initiating any aggressive acts of violence during the entire 33 years or more that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching us. The charge of violence against us actually stems from the guilt complex that exists in the conscious and subconscious minds of most white people in this country. They know that they've been violent in their brutality against Negroes, and they feel that someday the Negro is going to wake up and try and do unto them as they have done do unto the whites as the whites have done unto us. We aren't a violent group. We are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to obey the law, to respect everyone who respects us. We're taught to display courtesy, to be polite, but we're also taught that at any time anyone in any way inflicts or seeks to inflict violence upon us, we are within our religious rights to retaliate in self-defense to the maximum degree of our ability. We never initiate any violence upon anyone, but if anyone attacks us, we reserve the right to defend ourselves. So to accuse us of being violent is like accusing a man who is being lynched, who is being hung on a tree, simply because he struggles vigorously against his lyncher. The victim is accused of violence, but the lyncher is never accused of violence. And I only point this out because the various racist groups that are set up in this country by whites and who have actually practiced violence against blacks for 400 years are never associated or identified or made synonymous with the term violence. But whites speak of Muslims almost synonymously with violence. Whenever Muslims are mentioned by them, violence is brought up, but it's not connected with any other group. This is a sort of a propaganda tactic, or what I would call psychological warfare, to in some way make the image of the Muslims in this country be a violent image rather than a religious image.
I'd like to ask a question in that regard. What's interesting is that
Keenan, you King Keenan right now for that one. Y'all like that one?
Fired up.
Crazy part is, as we close out, is that not exactly what's going on today?
Man, when you're a vessel, your message is timely.
Same playbook that was done. I saw some of us say in the chat that was done a month after the great and horrific Birmingham, the bombing of the 4 girls. If I'm not mistaken, let me just double check. But look at that. Rashad, that's all I'm gonna have to say.
Nothing has to be said. It's been said. It's been written. Sometimes you gotta let the ancestors speak.
Hey, Janae, I hear you. The more things change, the more they stay the same. That's it. Like,
that's just the way it is.
Look at the cycle that we in. Damn. And we back right here again 5 days after the Buffalo massacre. Damn. Damn. Ashe. Brother Rashad, thank you so much, sir.
Always for the culture, brother.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Folks,
thank you.
I appreciate each and every one of you. My man Rashad, always good for the culture. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Folks, my time has been very well spent. I thank y'all for taking time out your busy schedules to be with us today. I just want to go straight. Y'all know this is what we do. This is what we say. This is what we're about here on Black Star Network. Make sure y'all show y'all support. BlackStarNetwork.com. Please give to help us continue to fuel this movement around Black-owned media. And if you can't give, certainly share, let folks know. Download it for free on all of your platform, on all of your devices. But Black Star Network, where we're going to definitely keep it black, unapologetically, unfiltered, man, like no other. So Black Star Network. But folks, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for checking in, all of the comments, all of the insight, continuing to have these discussions. I want to thank my team behind the scenes, Joel and Shannon, Ariel, and King Keenan. I'm going to call him that. King Keenan, for always doing the hard work to find those little nuggets that we can feed on to take us through. Thank y'all so much. Stay tuned at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can check in with my brother, big brother, Roland Martin, for Roland Martin Unfiltered. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow as we close out the week, family, for another exciting edition of The Culture, only right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.